288th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the 4th week of July 2018. This episode is titled Back on the GTD Wagon, Summer Series, Part 3. I'm your host, fresh off the wagon, Jason Atwood, and joining me, co-host Justin Wagon Wheel Edelstein.
I'll take Wagon Wheel.
Wagon Wheel?
Sure.
All right, so
Driving a stagecoach.
We have 2 weeks ago, we started off with corporate GTD. Last week, we came in and talked about landscapes and commitments in GTD. This week, wait, let's do a check. Look up. Oh my God, it's still there.
It's still there. And we were talking about your fall exploits with the Jets. Today was their first day of training camp.
Oh,
really awesome.
Sam's looking great, right?
Great, awesome.
Already great.
Yep.
So sorry that player got hurt though.
Yeah. Whoops.
All right. So this week we're gonna come and this is a personal episode. This one's a one to grow on. This one's an afternoon
special.
Oh
man.
One life.
It's that Saved by the Bell
another.
where Jesse took the drugs.
Yes,
I remember that one.
Zach had the cell phone.
Right. Well, he always had the cell phone.
I know, he always had the cell phone. There was a couple that were one to grow ons for the Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
The one where Screech.
Saved by the Bell needs to be on Netflix. Like, why can't we just get like 15 seasons of Saved by the Bell?
I listened to a podcast, side story, about that's a fantasy football podcast, and their song is "It's All Right." I drafted whatever Bell, like they made that song into a fantasy song. Anyway, I should play it, but I won't. All right, let's talk about
sound effects. Not our forte.
No, I mean I could bang on these things and make sounds, but all right. Let's talk about you and me, mostly you. Let's talk about, because I think this comes up a lot. Like I've gotten this question a lot. By the way, we're going to do a GTD Q&A episode. Spoiler alert, coming up either next week, and if we can't get to them all, we will try to maybe do them the week after. So we might do two episodes of it. So let's talk about falling off the wagon, because this happens a lot. I think GTD is really changing the way you think about things, the way you do things, the way you handle your life. So I think the number one question I get from people who try it is like, "Oh, I tried it, but then like, how do you get back on the wagon?" So I first want to say, I'm going to kind of ask you. By the way, I have fallen off the wagon. It's happened, but I want to ask you first of all, like, have you ever fallen off the wagon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why? Like, what happened? What happened to you that you fell off the wagon? Like, what mental state were you in? Mm-hmm. What do you think were some of the key factors of you falling off the GTD wagon?
So I've thought about this because I knew that we were gonna do this for a couple weeks.
So you actually prepared for a podcast.
Prepared for this one. So in my, I think it's about 10 or so years of practicing GTD, I have fallen off the wagon on 2 separate occasions.
Only?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've come to realize that I don't think I ever fully adopted it until I got back on the 3rd time.
Okay.
And that's why I fell off the first 2 times, because I wasn't getting what I thought I should get out of it.
Okay.
And that, I think, is probably the biggest symptom. It's like, why am I doing this stuff? Like, why am I, it is another, like, level of thinking, another level of taking things down, of consuming, of creating. Like, why am I doing all this stuff? I don't see any value. And it took, well, you didn't really ask, like, the like, how'd you get back on kind of thing.
No, I was going to get there.
We'll get there. But it like, the falling off happened for me because it was like, this is just a bunch of stuff I'm doing.
So you didn't see the value?
I didn't see the value.
Thought you could do it.
Thought I could just, I had never used it before, and I've always gotten by, like, always done fairly well. Like, I think I'm smart.
Questionable,
very. But what do I need this thing for?
So let's start with the first time. When was it? Where were you? Where were you working? What were you doing?
Was
it a company you could or could not name?
I was working at the nonprofit that I was working at.
Okay, so you were out of my grasps.
Out of your grasp, but took it with me there.
Right.
And tried to implement it without proper coaching.
Okay.
It's something that's very hard to do. Like, read a book that was written in an era that wasn't exactly, even 10 years ago, was already outdated, and try to take those concepts and use them without some coaching around, like, best practices, what to expect initially, like how it's going to sort of make you feel in a couple of months. Because it really is the kind of thing that, it's not an immediate thing. It takes some time to really get in the flow and really get your own methodology and practice. That's why it is a practice, getting it down. And it just wasn't happening. And there was no one to lean on to be like, why is this not working? Or why am I doing this? Or like, why do I have a recurring task every day to, like, brush my teeth? Or like that's dumb. I'm going to brush my teeth, maybe, but I don't need a tool to tell me to brush my teeth. And that's a built-in habit. So
changing. So it sounds like the first time, if I'm going to summarize, changing jobs, location, people around you, and going from a place where you're around someone who does it and talks about it all the time to a place where you weren't, kind of lifted the, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, it was, nobody else was doing it. And you stated, I think, a couple podcasts ago, like, if I'm the last person on earth just capturing and waiting for, fine. I was that person at this organization that was trying to elevate and lift, and I wasn't in a position to evangelize it. I also wasn't in a position where I understood it well enough to evangelize it. My job was to evangelize Salesforce at this organization. I did that very well and gained 100% adoption across the entire org. But GTD kind of fell on the wayside. But I was still able to function very highly there.
So when did you get back on the first time? When did you get back on the wagon?
When we started Arkus.
Okay.
And I came back into your clutches.
There's a theme here. I can see it's a pattern. It's very hard to figure out. Okay.
Well, and you come back and we start the company, and you and other partner who shall continue to remain nameless are doing your weekly reviews, and you're doing, you're waiting for me on things, and, like, I can tell you're GTDing me, right?
That's a thing.
An action verb. You're GTDing me, and I'm like, man, I gotta
definition.
Gotta get back on it.
Just for those out there who don't know what that means. That means when you are involved with somebody in your life that you need to keep on track. So you use the GTD methodology of captures and waiting for to make sure that they're on track. So when they make commitments like, hey, I'm gonna give you that paper on Friday. Instead of you just trusting they'll do it, you write it down yourself.
You both capture it. Or really, only one person's capturing it.
I don't really care if you captured it because I captured it. So when Friday rolls around, I ping you and I'm like, hey, where's that document you said?
It's part of I use that as part of, like, onboarding new employees here, and I'll tell them that people do that.
Yes.
I will say what is going to happen is you're going to have to tell people, like, when you're going to get them the thing. And they're going to write that down. They're going to capture it. And if you don't get them the thing by that date, they're going to ask you for it.
Right.
And then you're going to have to come up with an excuse or, like, a renegotiation of the commitment of getting that thing done by that date. And that's not fun to do over and over and over and over. It's fun. It's all right the first time. But, like, the night it starts grating on you.
So you then were back on the wagon because came to Arkus.
Back on the wagon, started
Arkus.
up the Arkus. We needed to all be on the same page. We were
lot of
trying
tasks,
to do a lot of things all at one time, and
So how did you fall off the second time?
Just thought I had it, and just said, "All right, I got this. This is
Hubris
easy."
is what we're saying. Okay.
Yep. Just and a bit of the word is tricky, whether it's procrastination or lazy or both.
I got a word for you.
Go ahead.
I'm a wordsmith.
Go ahead.
Fatigue. Maybe
Fatigue's a good one. A little GTD fatigue. I think it was more just like procrastination or more lazy than anything.
Can I just stop for a second and say, awesome? No, what I think is, and I told my GTD story. If you want to hear that story, go back to the first episode. I think it's 132, so a while ago. But
132, not like 133 or 131. It's like 132.
132.
132.
So, but a lot of people come to GTD because they're procrastinators. So it does not make it, and need help with productivity.
Right.
So it's not, these are people already ready and they have a lot in their life and they're overwhelmed. So it makes sense that the people who also come to it from that reason also fall off the wagon for that reason. Like, I came to this because I was a procrastinator and because I was overwhelmed. Now I feel like this thing is actually it's more work than it's helping me, and I'm not getting the value out of it. It's like I started Weight Watchers and it's only been a week and I haven't lost 20 pounds, so I'm going to give this up, and they fall off the wagon. Also, if you read the books, oh God, now it's all killing me, but basically habit forming books and how long it takes to build a habit, and habits, it's one of them is 30 days. You have to do something daily to make 30 days. Well, if you're even thinking about something like a weekly review that you're not doing daily, then how many weeks would that take you? Well, 30 weeks, let's call it.
Right.
And capturing and all that, you have to do it to make it a habit, to make it so it feels, we use the expression like when you don't brush your teeth and your teeth feel like they've got socks on, they're like dirty. It's like you feel that feeling of...
is that what you call that?
That's called your daily existence.
Yeah, I was just
the worst teeth.
I thought that was just teeth.
Anyway, if you're a good dentist, come see Justin because he's got some money to spend.
You want money? You're an oral surgeon and want money.
Oh yeah, I'll wait till that next one comes. So you have that feeling of like, oh, I'm not like, I have it. Like, if I don't do my weekly review, I get that feeling, and that stops me from falling off the wagon because I hate the feeling, and I like the good side feeling. Okay, so you felt because you were getting a little lazy,
maybe just like,
and what were the ramifications of it?
Things were slipping, but I didn't realize that they were slipping, and that's a bad thing. So if things are kind of like, you're not getting your things done and you don't even realize that they're not getting done, that's kind of bad. I don't think it was that bad, but what did happen was it was a commitment amongst ourselves, myself, yourself, and other partner, that we're a GTD shop. We also practice what we preach. You can't have employees and tell them to do this thing without doing it yourself, and tell them how great it is, but you don't need it. That's kind of silly. So the two of you, like, literally were just like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're not holding up your end of the GTD bargain. Like, we can tell
Your commitment.
Yeah, we can tell. Like, we are that transparent of an organization that you can actually tell if people are or are not practicing GTD. It's actually that easy. And it was that easy for you and for other partner to say to me, you're not doing your weekly review. What else are you not doing? And it was like, damn. Okay. And I fought it. And then I accepted it. And then I made it a thing that I made even more transparent.
Right.
I made it even more transparent to everybody. Anyone who wanted to could see that I was doing this thing every week. And the thing that got me really back was weekly review. It was the thing that I could never really get my arms around and never really grasp the both conceptually why it was important, but also in practice, the importance of getting it done. Like taking that hour or so, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the week, and depending on just how I'm feeling that particular day, sometime on the weekend, and just taking some time to decompress, shed everything else out, and review and look things over and make sure nothing fell through the cracks and be able to cross that off. Like, I did that this week. And until I really was able to make it a thing that was a commitment to myself, a commitment to others, and that we can all see. And then it clicked. Like, again, the impetus for the weekly review was there's a 3-part series that David Allen did with a couple of GTD coaches.
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a 3-disc series. It's on CDs that I'm sure you can find digitally somewhere, that they did about just weekly review. And it was probably an hour and a half, maybe, of content.
Like
longer, 4 hours. I listened to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I did it maybe like during runs or during my commute or whatever. I like quit podcasts for like a week and listened to this weekly review series. And I learned a lot because really my only perspective on it was you.
Right.
And the other book partner. And the other partner. And then it's like, oh, I never really dove into the rest of the content that's being produced by David Allen and his company and all of these other like consultants who've popped up around the productivity methodology itself. And when I started listening to their perspectives and then added it into what I already knew from yourself and from other partner and from other people that worked at Arkus at that point, it started to make more sense. And it was like, oh, well, weekly review is like a big thing, right? It's a 1 week, every week you do it, but it's useless if you're not doing some of the other things. Cause like you can review nothing and that's pretty useless. Like, let me go do my weekly review. Let me empty my inbox. Oh, I don't have an inbox.
It's definitely the last thing. You're right. You have to get the other principles.
But that's where it clicked for me. It clicked for me on the last thing because I was like, I can't even do this thing if I don't do all the things that lead up to it. So I've got to keep my calendar is easy. Calendar is always up to date. But did I review it all the time? Like going out 3 months every week? No. Should I? Yeah. It makes me better. I go look out and I'm like, whoa, okay, Dreamforce. Like I'm out there on a Sunday, right? I'm out in Dreamforce. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's where I'm looking at this point. And the same thing goes for like, emptying your inbox, looking at different projects and seeing where they are and looking at different perspectives of your life. And I understood then that like, oh, this weekly review thing is really powerful, but I am making it not powerful by not doing any of the other things. So again, for me, the 2 biggest things are capture and weekly review. Capture and weekly review. Capture and weekly review. The other stuff kind of falls into place for me after those 2 things. And that's what got me back on the bandwagon, the wagon, so to speak. And I haven't really fallen off, and I've accomplished like some pretty difficult things, some hard, not work projects, but like life projects.
Life projects, those are the hardest.
That are really difficult because work is very structured and life isn't that way. And, I've had major surgeries. I've had, major, selling and buying of apartments, like major things happen in my life over the course of the last number of years, getting married, all of these things. I should have said that one first. And I
doesn't matter. She doesn't listen.
No, but I don't know how, like when I have to deal with these things that come up, I don't know how now I don't get how I would do it without it.
You would do it, you just wouldn't do it as well.
I wouldn't do it well. Like I wouldn't do it to my standards. So like there's a standard that you set for yourself and then that's that. Like you have to live up to that standard.
I love that feeling of being very on top of things and like and in control of my life and what I need to do. And I love that feeling when someone just says to you casually, "Hey, could you do blah blah blah?" And I go, "Sure." And then 2 days later, I did it and I said it to them or did whatever I said. Some small commitment. We talked about commitments last time. I love that feeling of, "Oh, thanks." Like, "Oh, yeah, it's really nice." Like you really did it. Because in this world, so many people just say sure to stuff. Let's talk about a couple. We got a couple minutes. Like, let's talk about a couple tips. Give me like what would you do? What would you tell someone who just fell off the wagon? What would you tell them to do? Because I'm sure 10 people are listening, maybe 2, that have fallen off the wagon. What would you tell them to do?
If you have a partner, a spouse, go talk to them and say, literally, even if they have no clue what GTD is, but someone that you trust, go to them and say, "Hey, I use this productivity methodology called GTD. I've kind of been failing at it over the last however many months or weeks or whatever.
Right.
I'm recommitting myself to this methodology. Here are the 3 things that I'm going to do every single week that make certain that I am on top of this. I'm asking you to just put a check on me to just say, did I do those 3 things? Right. Just ask me every Sunday, did you do those 3 things? Or I'll put it in a place where you can just go see it." And like, to me, that outward facing commitment is so important. As an example, everybody can go look at my Twitter feed and you will see the last time I didn't do a weekly review, because the first thing in my weekly review is to tweet it. Why? Because it's public.
Right.
It's a public commitment that I've made to the world that I am doing this thing every week.
So it's the same concept as joining a gym, right? You're going into the gym. You see the same people. When you come in 2 days later or 3 days later and they don't see you, they're like, "Hey, Bob, I didn't see you." Well, I'm always picking on Bob. But like, "Hey, Bob, I didn't see you the other day." Joining a gym is a reason. Same thing with church. Going to a religious place. Like, that's why there's a gathering. That's why there's a multiple thing. It's one of the things that GTD is kind of missing, although there are organizations and whatever. But because it is sort of a personal thing. So if you're failing, you can fail personally and no one will know.
Right.
That's why
make it public.
Yeah, make it public.
Make
That's
it
a good
public.
one.
I do it all every weekly review. You'll see me try to come up with some silly tweet about why I'm doing a weekly review this week.
I would say start with another piece of content. I think some people get and then just start with a small piece. Like, you don't have jumping. The wagon's a bad example because you're either on the wagon or off the wagon. I would say start up just like when you start GTD. And I tell people, don't start GTD with the book. Actually, I say don't start it with the book. There's like 2 videos I say to go watch first, or one. Like, there's his TED Talk. It's 20 minutes. Like, if you can't make a 20-minute commitment, you're not going to finish that book. So I'm like, well, watch the video. And if you're like, "Oh, that makes sense," then go do this other thing. And then when you're implementing it, do these little things, because they are habits, and all of them, and they do take the 30. So start again small. Don't be like, "Oh, I now need to capture 2-minute rule, review, inbox 0, week review." How about start with, go back and say, for this week, I'm just going to capture things. And then next week, I'm going to capture things. And then maybe I will throw them in an inbox. And then maybe the 3rd week, I might actually empty my inbox. And let's just see how it goes. Like, start with small stuff. I love making it public. I love the gym/church metaphor. You can always tweet at me. How's that? Anybody out there, if you want to tweet at me, I started your practice as well. I find it fun to tweet my weekly review. Start your practice and be like,
a lot of people at Arkus do it.
Yeah,
you'll notice it's taken off.
It's taken off. Yeah,
it's a good thing.
And we have a way internally that shows whether you've done your weekly review or not. It's kind of like a little mini, hey, here's what I've done. So it is actually available to everybody. But
that's how you guys got me.
Yes. Well, because we just went back over 6 weeks and like, it's not here.
You're not doing it. I'm like, you're right.
Well, and I could tell. I mean, I've known you so long that I can tell, because what happens to you is things start slipping. You can just sense. It's just, that's it. I mean, again, I can look at people and deal with them on a day-to-day basis and go, that person would do very well with some capture and GTD and some weekly review. And then when they do it and they get it to this next level, they go up to like level 8, and you're like, oh, and then all of a sudden they drop down again. You're like, what happened? Oh, they stopped doing something. Because that person, when they're on GTD, it's like being on a drug. When they're on GT, they're at this level of performance.
It's like Adderall.
It's definitely like Adderall.
When you're on Adderall,
yeah, you're
like
definitely
peak performance.
Anyway, All right, so that's back on the GTD wagon. Thank you for sharing your story.
I'm happy to share.
Yes. Next week we're going to come back and we're going to do Q&A. And I might break it into 1 or 2 episodes depending on how much we get through. So we'll be back next week. We'll be end of almost into August. So much GTD
the dog
content.
days.
Dog days of August.
The dog days.
Until then, it's Justin and Jason saying enjoy those cloudy days.